Always make sure the equipment is well maintained.
Whoa.
Okay, greetings everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me if you would. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. And of course, the StreamYard link is down there for anybody who wants to join the panel. We're going to be talking about child abuse again today. Whose fault is it? Part 2. And if you remember in the first video I did here a few days back, the concept is that children, when they're born and they're growing up, before they even have a concept of what God is, they look up to the adults in their life as those very gods, those heroes, the parents. And when it comes down to the child abuse and giving up your responsibilities as a parent to someone else, no matter what the venue is, then you're the one responsible for the child abuse that occurs in those venues that you handed them over to. It's very important to know who you're handing your children over to and what their track record is, and to maintain an oversight, period. So we're going to start out. We got a short here, again, as a matter of addressing others. And I want you to pay attention. This is it's kind of a humorous little clip, but there's a serious undertone to it that we really need to pay attention to when it comes to addressing other people. So let's take a look. It says, the best of calling teachers by their name.
What's up, Bruce?
Excuse me?
Hey, Michelle. What's up, George?
What's going on?
Not much. What's up, Bruce?
Are you kidding me right now? You have to be joking. You need to put Wayne next to the name Bruce.
Good morning, Desiree.
Good morning. How are you?
What's up, Chad?
Same phone.
Good morning, Deb.
Good morning, Justin.
What's up, Brandon?
Call me by my first name. Give me the dang phone.
What's up, John?
Don't call me by my first name. Give me the dang phone. See, most people aren't really gonna mind so much, but you'll notice everyone so far, it's really caught their attention when they're in a venue where they're used to be addressed by a title, and all of a sudden you address them by their name.
What's up, Mr. Patel?
What's up, Katie?
Wrong. Try again.
What's up? Happy birthday, Tracy.
Oh, it's your birthday. We gotta sing happy birthday.
What's up, Carrie?
Not a lot. What's up with you?
What's up, Oscar?
Get that camera out of my face.
I need you to please be courteous, be respectful for our teachers and our staff, and not be calling them by their first name.
Okay, Chris.
Seriously?
What's up, Bruce?
So you saw there at the end where he was getting addressed by the principal, evidently, who was telling him he needed to be respectful. This is the importance of knowing how to address people properly. And this is why I talk about that First Amendment and the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So let's get into it. We've got another short. And it seems like it is a disturbing case. But I want you to understand the underlying responsibilities and who ended up having to take responsibilities, because the adults in these lives of these children did not take the responsibility. So other children took up that responsibility. Oops. I forgot to get the screen share over here. Let's try it again.
A 9-year-old sister screamed as she ran into her two brothers' room, with a man chasing her from behind. This man was their stepfather, Gabriel Quintanilla. The sister cried and begged her brothers to get rid of him. After they kicked Quintanilla out, the brothers noticed red stains on the sister's pants, looking like blood. They immediately asked her what had happened. The sister, crying even harder, sobbed as she told them the terrifying story. Their stepfather had used force to threaten her in the room, then stabbed something into her body and threatened to kill her if she told anyone. After feeling intense pain, she struggled violently, eventually finding a chance to escape and run to them. Upon hearing all this, the brothers couldn't contain their anger. They immediately called their friends and stormed into Quintanilla's room, attacking him with steel pipes. Quintanilla, panicking, tried to run and screamed for help, but no one came to his aid. It turned out that Quintanilla was a repeat offender who had an arrest warrant out for him due to continuous child abuse.
Repeat offender with a current warrant out for his arrest, knowing where he lives, and failed to act upon it. And like it said, multiple offenses, repeat offender.
However, the police had failed to take any action, so the neighbors despised him and refused to help or call the authorities. Quintanilla eventually ran to a field, but the brothers caught up with him, beat him again, and left him in the field like trash. When Quintanilla was found later, his body was already stiff. Upon realizing they had killed him, the brothers chose to turn themselves in. They only wanted to teach the bad guy a lesson, never expecting that his life wouldn't be as tough. Now they face first-degree murder charges and could be sentenced to life in prison. After people learned their story, petitions were sent to the court, asking for the release of these heroes. They argued that they weren't criminals, but were protecting their young sister from harm. They were simply doing the job the police and the law failed to do. They should be awarded medals, not...
Oops.
such a monster. Would you choose to kill that man or call the police? If you think they are heroes, leave the word hero in the comments.
So what do you guys think? You think these kids are heroes? See, that's why I played that clip at the beginning of these videos. Philip Zimbardo, the Stanford Prison Project, and the insane lengths people will go to have control over others. He now runs a heroic imagination project. And again, I urge everybody to check into it and get involved. These children need heroes. They need that God. They need moms and dads, not heathens. See, when it comes down to these children, do they have a right to have somebody else stand up for them? See, people think that children don't have rights because they're not adults. Where do those rights come from? Those rights, freedoms, and liberties, where do they come from? Do they come from a piece of paper, or are they natural by instinct and intuition to have the freedom to make your choices and deal with the rewards or consequences? See, most people think that right to be represented by counsel in the Sixth Amendment is for adults only. They think the First Amendment, freedom of speech, is for adults only. I urge people to think deeply on this, because inherently everything we do in life is for the prospering and multiplying by bringing in more children. Are we to bring those children in so we can abuse them, so that they can grow up and be abusers and destroy humanity, which is where we're headed? Or do they have the rights and freedoms and liberties and everything to be natural creatures? And at any point, whether we determine an age of majority or not, they have a right to fight back. We have to think about this stuff, people. So let's get into the video. Last time we saw how there were some school workers that got in trouble for abuse And rather than being able to take care of it firsthand, they had to wait until somebody found out, despite the fact that everything's captured on video, and they could have been reviewing it and caught it a lot sooner. So let's take a look. And this is why I say the oversight is our responsibility. We can't continue putting our children into these venues and not maintain an oversight and just wantonly believe that the people that we hand them over to are qualified by somebody else and therefore we should trust them. I don't care what any piece of paper says. I need to know a man and his character by firsthand experience.
To a story that we have just been brought to.
20 school workers charged in child abuse case. This is in one school. 20. The one we reviewed last week or this previous week was just 3. But I'm telling you, this is systemic throughout every district, every school, every institution where you're handing your children over to somebody else, whether it be hospitals, schools, or anything. You have to maintain the oversight. This is why we lost the republic. This is why everybody is now, in this modern time, a quote, bitch-ass slave, as I call them. Because they refuse to stand up and take responsibility for what's theirs, and it shows because they continuously send their children off to school, public education, instead of educating them themselves.
To our attention with this feed about the last 10 minutes ago. We want to bring this to you here out of Pennsylvania. We are learning that 20 school workers have been charged with abuse, and they are alleged to be doing issues here with abuse as far as physical harm and also mental harm as well. So let's listen in on Live Now from Fox.
McNemesis, just so you know, I don't give too many chances. You're one of the ones I've already given enough chances. You are not welcome here. Please feel free to comment and chat all you want. But as soon as you want to start getting stupid, I'll ban you. I'm trying to give you a chance to be reasonable and logical. Do so in chat. Let me see. And I might change my mind. But until then, no, you're not going to come up here and make a fool of anybody. And if you try to do so down in chat, like I said, I'll just ban you. It's your move. You have the freedom of choice to make a good choice and be a good man.
Fox.
We're here today. As you all know, we charged earlier today 20 individuals who worked at the Chester Community Charter School with child abuse. 9 of the individuals actually, according to the surveillance videos we've reviewed, actually laid their hands on children and abused them physically. 11 other individuals who are sort of different roles in the school turned their backs and looked the other way. Or in fact, oftentimes looked right at the abuse happening and failed to report it. So they are charged with failure to report. These are All of these employees.
My apologies. So what we have here is 9 teachers that were involved in the actual abuse, and then 11 people that were supposed to maintain an oversight through mandatory reporting, and they didn't. So when it comes to the oversight in these kind of situations, there is no oversight. When these other people are overlooking it and not disclosing it, then they are part of the problem and there is no fix. So again, when your children are being abused in these systems, I am again opposing that you are the one responsible because you gave up that responsibility without doing your oversight.
Employees, all 20 people, have a duty under Pennsylvania law to report instances of child abuse. They are mandated to report that by law. So by not reporting it, they violated the law. We've also charged those 11 individuals who witnessed this without doing anything with endangering the welfare of those children.
And so not only that, but understand how this works. If there are 9 of them that are directly involved in the physical abuse, I can only imagine that it started out with 1 and he got away with it. And everybody else that let him get away with it were influenced and said, oh, wow, he got away with it. Yeah, because I let him. Well, they'll let me get away with it too. So we end up with 9 people physically abusing the children and 11 people that are charged for oversight issues of not mandatorily reporting them. And so it expands beyond just the one teacher abusing the one child, but multiple teachers abusing many children. It is exponential if you do not do anything about it.
But there are 9 individuals who we have surveillance videos that I've watched of them putting their hands on these children, some as young as 5. It's their K to 5 years grades. And these are children who are in the emotional support program. And
imagine that. Little children in an emotional support program being terrorized. Let that sink in. Being terrorized. Put in padded rooms. Things like that. To me, it's disgusting.
so in the surveillance videos, you can see them doing pressure point holds on the child's shoulder, causing them pain. You can see them.
Pressure point holds. Now, I don't know where it's in the curriculum that teachers are supposed to learn aggressive military-style tactics of pressure holds on children, or why it would be instituted in such a place on such little beings. Again, disgusting.
Grabbing their hands and putting them in front of them to restrain them. Oftentimes, you can see them then using their knee to take the child to the ground. And at least one.
Using their knee to take a child to the ground. Disturbing. Code enforcement trying to steal your home from you, huh? Understand the contract, brother. The contract is set up under a trust, and your position in the trust says that you're a third party supposed to be benefiting from the rights and interests in the use and possession of a thing for your benefit.
On incidents, I saw them jack a kid up against the wall. This is just unacceptable behavior to happen anywhere, but particularly in a school setting for children who are supposed to be getting emotional support. So we are thankful that the Chester Township Police, as soon as this came to light, officers drove. And
so we see a situational program of special education that is supposed to be structured around children in need because of their emotional aspects. And instead of trying to develop those emotional aspects, They are destroying them even further. Again, this is egregious at the highest level.
Detective Mullen, working with our office, my Deputy District Attorney, Kristen Kemp, have investigated this matter. It's still an ongoing investigation, but we've charged these individuals and we're moving forward. And I assume you all might have some questions.
Can you talk about the emotional support program, first of all, so we understand that these kids are supposed to be getting help with their emotions and they're getting attacked in the class?
Exactly right. I mean, my understanding is these are children who it's been identified that they need more help at that age, a very tender age, K to 5 grades we're talking about here. And so these people are supposed to be giving them extra support as they're trying to learn in school. And instead, oftentimes, they're just either intimidating them physically and then laying hands on them. It's very disturbing to see the surveillance videos.
Jack, could you tell us the relationship between the contractor and the school and who was involved there, and are they just as culpable as the school or vice versa?
My understanding.
So they just asked a question as to the contractor and whether they're just as culpable as the school. And this is the concept I'm trying to put out to you people, is that you are just as culpable as the parents. We need to stop blaming everybody else and see where the blame lies across the board. You first and foremost are responsible for sending your child off to those schools. You yourself are responsible for sending your children off to those schools without doing your due diligence and research to make sure those people are qualified and don't have any record, and that somebody has been maintaining an oversight and reviewing videos to make sure there is no abuse going on. You fail that. When you fail that, that allows for them to fail. If you keep up your due diligence, then they can't fail because you're maintaining the oversight. This is why it's so important to get involved in your community and know these people firsthand. Even if the teacher's not your student's, your child's teacher, get to know them, because they're the ones that are going to be looking over after your child. If that other teacher that is being abusive, he needs to be able to contact you. He needs to be able to talk to his superiors. And you need to be able to talk to his superiors and let them know that if it does go on at the lower level, you're going to hold the superiors responsible, because you know they're supposed to maintain that oversight. And if they don't, you will. But if you won't, they won't.
Again, this is a continuing investigation, is that most of these, if not all of these employees, I don't think all of them, but most of them were contracted through this organization, Peak Performance. Thank you. They're supposed to be keeping records, they're supposed to be training, and they've told the school that they were doing all of that. The law enforcement investigation is finding that out to not be true. That they
See, if they're failing, it's a sign that you failed. If you don't check and make sure that these contractors and teachers are maintaining their current contracts and keeping up with the oversight and training that they're already supposed to be doing, then that's on you. You're the one that's willing to send your children off to people that will abuse them, regardless of any special emotional conditions. You're the ones that should be ashamed. This is not something that just started yesterday. People have been known to abuse children in schools for many, many years. Yet people still send their children to school without touching on the fact that it's their responsibility to maintain the oversight. They continuously leave it up to the school associations and think that they're just going to do their job. How many times are you going to have to be proven wrong before you finally step up and say enough is enough?
They haven't train these people in the proper way to restrain a child, if you have to restrain a child. And the school is under an obligation, I think you see it in the complaint, that if a child is restrained at any time, that has to be reported by the state. So I think there are some issues here for both the school and certainly for this company.
And so now you see the state's involvement as well, because anytime a child is restrained, like you said, and again, this goes to the mandatory reporting part as to the best interests of the children, the state is involved. So you have to make sure you are maintaining the oversight over the state as well. Like I said, we lost the republic because people gave up the responsibility to somebody else. And we're still living in modern day times thinking that somebody else's responsibility without recognizing it's ours. It's time to stop being so fucking lazy in your own interests.
That was providing some of these employees because the school wasn't looking at their own surveillance video.
Jackie, affidavit
The school wasn't looking at their own surveillance video. Remember, that's one of the things I mentioned a couple times before when we talk about our children in these environments and they have videos. Who is reviewing the videos on a regular basis to make sure that it's not being happened, or that abuse isn't happening, and that people that are supposed to be mandatory reporters are in fact reporting it? We get so lax in the trust that people are just doing their job because we hear no reports. Well, nobody's telling us they're being abused, so everybody must be doing their job as mandatory reporters. Really? 20 people in one school and they're all doing their job as according to the mandatory reporting? It's systemic, and if you think that's a one-off, you're wrong. It happens in every school around this nation. And if you think these people are in it for the best interest of your children, they're getting a paycheck and they're damn well going to keep doing it, even if they get accused of abuse at this school, just like the police. It might be covered up and they're just going to move to another school. Pathetic.
Describes this as systemic. It wasn't sporadic, it wasn't incidental. This was something that was known about, that people ignored or participated in. Is your office investigating the rest of that school just to make sure that this isn't taking place anywhere else?
Yeah, great question. So we are, as I mentioned, Alex, it's a continuing investigation. If you see from the complaint, most of the incidents that we've charged happened between November and December of last year.
Most of the situations we've charged happened between November and December of last year. That's 9 incidents involving 20 people in 1 month. So again, this didn't just start yesterday, folks. How long has it been going on? They only checked out 1 month. What about prior to that? Has anybody reviewed all those videos prior to that? Are they still reviewing videos to make sure it's not reoccurring?
We're still looking at video. So there will be more work being done by these great officers from Chester Township who picked up the cudgel when we first got complaints in the door. They have been investigating this nonstop.
And yes, Tribe agrees. It's the people's duty to ensure government is functioning in the public interest. So, yeah, you got to step it up. If you think that you don't have any say in it, look at that ID in your pocket and understand that that's an expression of a trust. The state is the fiduciary. That means that's where the obligation lies. But you have an independent responsibility according to your own interests as part of that public to make sure that the fiduciary is doing as you need them to do for those interests. And again, there is no interest higher than the best interests of the children, regardless of your own interests.
Chief Colson, who I spoke to this morning, is absolutely committed to continuing the investigation. And if there are more charges warranted, we're going to bring them.
If there are more charges warranted, we're going to bring them. So again, why don't you go back and look at all the other videos? This is just from November to December, 1 month. So I urge, if they're going to do that properly, the people involved here should make sure that they review all of the videos to get as many cases as possible. Because if you let one slip, guess what? That one that slips through is going to end up abusing the next child. And even if you dismiss them and he moves to another school, see, the likelihood of you not maintaining your responsibility of that oversight is that it's 90%, in my opinion, 90% chance that your child will be abused.
Do you think that there are more victims out there? And if so, what's your message to these parents instead?
I can't tell you how many more people. I mean, 26 children have been identified as people who...
So 20 adults, and now we find out there's 26 children involved. So 9 adults involved in abusing 26 children, 11 adults involved in the oversight, just letting it go by as mandatory reporters. Those are pretty sickening numbers, folks.
Our victims already. We also know that some young people witnessed these things happening and may not have been actually victimized themselves. That's another form of victimization. I think, again, to Alex's point.
Yeah, just imagine being in a class like that, emotionally disturbed children, supposed to be getting some kind of extra special attention and care according to these emotions, and one of those children, or many of those children, see another child being abused. See, that's trauma against all of those other children witnessing it. So again, don't let it sit at just those 26 kids being abused. Like I said, it's much more exponential.
This is a systemic problem in this school where these kids in this program were living in fear, a lot of them. So if there are more victims, we would love their parents to come forward. It probably took a lot of courage for these young children to tell their parents what was happening in school and why they were afraid to go back to school. But as we're interviewing these children, we're getting the stories. And if there are more people and more children who want to come forward, we are here for them, as are the Chester Township Police.
Have the victims' families seen these videos and just your thought as a human being watching these?
Yeah, I don't think that they've seen the videos. As a parent, I'm really disturbed to think that when you send your child to school, that somebody who is being paid to take care of your child is actually hurting them is just frightening. Just as a human being, it's awful to watch these grown people the way they're treating these young kids. And you can just imagine what this is going to be like for those children going forward. This is just not the way we're supposed to treat young people, particularly in a school setting. It's been a complete failure.
Well, part of the complete failure here is that these schools aren't what you think they are. They're characterized after the Prussian military training education. And that's exactly what we've got. We've got a military training school. That's what your public education system is. Military training schools. Do not be deceived.
And I'm outraged by it. Talking again to Chief Colson this morning, he hasn't seen anything like this either for a long time in his career. And so that's why we want to make sure that we brought the charges as quickly as possible, but also to continue the investigation to make sure that we've stopped it.
Jackie, 20.
This is how to get in shape fast.
If you want to drop this,
start eating more of these.
Individuals, 26 students. Have you seen a case like this where this many people are involved?
Not like this. And again, one of the more disturbing things is how there are people sitting there watching it happen.
See, and that's what I'm telling you, folks. See, you're the ones sitting there watching it happen. You're the ones that know that it happens. And yet you're the ones still sending your children to these schools instead of maintaining an oversight to make sure that they're being done, taught properly and cared for properly, or removing them and doing it yourself, which is what I would pose you do. I don't suggest sending anybody's children off to somebody else before the age of at least 10. Bring them up in a spiritual education in their youth first. Help them discover their true natural talent first, and then you can put them in a public education system or establish some kind of public education decorum, curriculum, things like that. See, in the meantime, according to them discovering their talents, they're also going to be involved in the reading, writing, and arithmetic to advance that talent in the basics. Once they got that down, then you can send them to that public education curriculum to have them fine tune it. I think that would be more sensible. Otherwise, I see nothing but the destruction of the true spiritual character morals of our children by putting them into these abusive centers, where they don't learn those morals and ethics because of it.
In the teacher's desk, watching me.
And remember, this guy agreed with me. It is systemic.
These kids get abused, and the surveillance video doesn't have audio, but you can see from most of these attacks, these children are just sitting there, and an adult comes over and starts pinching their shoulder till they're writhing in pain, and then putting them in restraints, and then picking them up. Meanwhile, there's an adult just sitting there watching it all happen. I'm as outraged by that.
Physically abusing the child until he gets violent himself to put him in restraints. You see how that works? My companion, bless her heart, was a special education teacher. She had a padded room in her own room. I don't think that's the way we're supposed to be doing this. I don't think that was the natural spiritual intent. Again, I urge you to take your responsibility and start removing your children from these centers.
As you can imagine, right? Both the fact that somebody is physically assaulting these kids, but also...
And that is not legal advice, medical advice, or anything. That is just my opinion, and I urge you.
Educators, people who are working in the school, just allowing it to happen, systemic. Look the other way.
How long was the school?
There he goes again, admitting that it's systemic, just looking the other way.
Operating with this company? How many years?
Don't know. You have to ask the school.
So with the 20 people, have they said anything? What kind of charges, what kind of time are they facing? Have they given any explanation for what?
Well, they're all, dealing with lawyers at this point and turning themselves into the police. I think 3 defendants have already turned themselves in today. They're all facing felony counts at this point. Some of them, a lot of them. Harris, Daniels.
They're all facing felony accounts. That's because they're all working for the state. Anybody that is in a direct contract with the state or is in fact a public official of some sort, when they get charged with one of these crimes, it's a felony. Again, because they're the fiduciary. They are the ones that are supposed to be reporting it. And that's the egregious act, is that the ones that sit back and look and see it, but don't say anything. How dare you? How dare you be one of the vices that cut off the voices of these little children? Pathetic, weak cowards. Because they want to keep their job. They don't want to cause turmoil. No, the turmoil is already there. You witnessed it and won't do anything about it.
Defendants who actually touch those children time and time again. They are on all of these videos over and over again. And again, this is a continuing investigation, John, so there may be more charges coming. But they're going to have their day in court. Right now, these are charges, allegations, and we're prepared to move forward and prosecute them fully.
For the parents of remaining students there, how confident are you that this abuse has stopped? What would you tell them?
What I can tell them is all we can do in law enforcement is stop what we've seen and what we've learned and what we've uncovered thus far. We're going to continue.
And that's why I say, ultimately, it is your responsibility as parents to maintain the oversight, because there is only so much that they can and will do. And when they can and will do it, it's in the interest of their pockets, their checkbooks. going home to their families and feeding their families. That's their interest. They really don't have the best interest of the child in their heart. I don't see it. Some, very few might. But if those people honestly had the best interest of the child in their hearts, those other 11 people would have stood up and said something about it immediately. So not only is it those, but again, like this man said, it's systemic. I've been saying this a long time. I saw it in my youth. I don't see why, as you adults, don't see it in your youth, and then see how that could be passed on to your own children. You somehow think the system fixed itself?
Do the investigation, and if there are more incidents, if people want to come forward and help us with that, we are open for that business. But we're also just going to do what we do in law enforcement. We're going to just continue to investigate this until we don't have any more bad actors to hold accountable.
And this was just a 7-year-old who said
They want to go to school anymore. They want to go to school anymore, John, because he was afraid to go to school. When a small child is telling
You should be afraid to send your children to school. It shouldn't be a matter of your children being afraid. It should be a matter of you being afraid. Afraid enough to do your checks first. Get in there and find out who those teachers are, what their background is, how long they've been teaching there, how many other places they've been teaching, why they were removed from those institutions. Sounds like a lot of work, doesn't it? It is. But if you're not in it for the best interest of your child, then hand it over to somebody else that's going to do it for the interest of their checkbook. Feel free. That's on you.
telling you, and you're a parent, that they're afraid to go back to school because they're afraid of what the teachers are doing with them, that is just as a parent's worst nightmare. So I'm thankful those young people did that. I'm thankful their parents listened. And I'm thankful that the law enforcement, the Chester Township Police Department, jumped on this immediately, contacted our office, and we've done the work we've done. None of these people right now, these 20 people, are teaching children today. That's a victory for people who go to that school.
You know, the spokesperson for the school said that all of the parents of these children had decided to keep their kids in the school. Do you know if that?
See, that's the power of your oversight as well, folks. See, when you have the best interest of your child at hand, you're one of the ones that will, if you see somebody abusing somebody else's child, you will report it. That's the importance of the oversight of the people, is the exponential rate that we can keep an eye on each other if we are doing what is just and right, if we are maintaining our responsibility.
I have no idea.
Okay. We know that the school says they conducted their own internal investigation. Did the school reach out to Chester Township Police?
Not to my knowledge. But the Chester Township Police did get cooperation from school officials. There's also child line reports that need to be made. So
understand what happened there is the school did their own investigation, but did not reach out. It took the parents to reach out. It wasn't until the parents reached out to the law enforcement that something was done by law enforcement. It wasn't until the parents reached out to the school that something was done by the school. But again, there was no communication from the school to the police. That's why you have to do it. Those lines of communication, again, comes down to that First Amendment. That's your lines of communication. And if you don't say it, it ain't going to get done. And if you don't tell it to the right people, it ain't going to get done. So I have yet to find out whether the state is actually involved, other than the courts, as to the contracts of these teachers and schools and other contractors involved in taking care of your children, as to the consequences and enforcement. See, that's the part that's yet to come. That's the state's part. Once the school does their investigation and the police do their investigation, now the state has to come in. Well, again, I urge you to understand that your position in this is the oversight of all of it, and you must hold the state accountable to those processes of criminal prosecution and enforcement of the penalties. You need to start speaking out, and you need to start doing it now.
As soon as we knew something, and I'm not sure.
Again, not legal advice, just my opinion. Very strong opinion.
Sure what the order was, whether or not the school knew first, but as soon as we knew something, Chester Township Police were on this that day.
Are they getting continued?
Pardon me?
Are they getting continued support from the schools? Is the school still cooperating at this time?
To my knowledge, they are, but again, it's a continuing investigation. What we've focused on this past weekend was making sure that we got these people charged.
How far back are you looking at getting surveillance video here?
Well, at this point, the Chester Township Police have been able to look at a couple of months worth of video. I think that they're trying to get more of that, but again, continuing investigation. Our mission.
Trying to get more of it. They should already have it. They should have every piece of footage that is recorded and should be going over all of it. This is where I would be screaming. Again, like I mentioned earlier, why just November to December? I want every video available reviewed. Even if the teacher is no longer teaching and has been found to abuse one of the children, we need to find them and charge them. None slip through the crack. That will never happen until you look out for the best interest of your children, because ain't nobody else going to do that.
Right now was to hold these people accountable and make sure that they're not teaching children today.
Just to make sure, was this one classroom that kids from K, or they like each grade had a classroom of this type of?
My understanding is there was a couple of classrooms where this program was being run in. And yeah, I think you see from the complaint that they're mentioned in there, classroom A, and then another with a different name to it. I forget the second classroom's name. But I think kids filter through those classrooms during the course of the day.
Do you know if this company is working with any other schools?
So 9 teachers involved in 2 classrooms involving 26 students. Let those numbers sink in. 9 teachers involved in 2 classrooms involving 26 students and 11 others that are mandatory reporters that observed it and knew about it and didn't say anything.
I don't, not at this point.
It seems like the workload's going to be pretty big in terms of like all of those teachers. Because anybody who saw anything and didn't say anything, everybody in the school now, is that seems like a pretty huge project.
Well, what we've seen from the videos that we've looked at, right? It's inside a classroom. So if there's an individual who's a support staff who is assaulting this child, if there's a teacher watching, they've been charged. So as of today, we've gotten our hands around everybody we needed to charge based on the evidence we have today. But again, as a continuing investigation, there could be more videos uncovered. There could be more parents coming forward. But we're open to that. But we needed to get this case charged as quickly as possible, and that's why we're.
Is there anywhere parents should reach out if they think?
They can always call our office, as you know, Alex, but I would call the Chester Township Police Department, Chief Colson, Patrolman Strafe, and Detective Mullen have been doing a great job. They are the leads on this case in terms of the investigation of this.
And is that where they're turning themselves in?
Correct. And they're making arrangements with the district court as well. We have a district court here in Upper Providence where we bring child abuse task force cases, and so this case will eventually filter through that court.
Where's that at?
Right here in Upper Providence on Providence Road. Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much.
In other news, Iowa.
So again, folks, I'm urging people to step up to your responsibility, learn that First Amendment, freedom of expression, all of that, and learn how to speak out. Learn how to get involved. Learn how to do your research on these people before you go contracting with them, before you go registering your children to attend those public schools. Find out if there's other venues that you can use. Find out if there's other ways to teach your children, such as homeschooling. Find out if you can do it yourself. That is what I would urge strongly, is taking upon that responsibility yourself and stop giving it up to somebody else. That's truly our inherent responsibility. If we're supposed to multiply and bring forth these children, we're not supposed to bring forth children and just let them go off and wander around. We're supposed to educate them so that they can do as well as us or better than us, so we can improve this world. Sending them off to these people that are destroying them isn't going to help them be better people. You hear all the time, hurt people hurt people. It happens a lot. I grew up as a young man, as a pyro, loving to set things on fire, apartment buildings and everything. Doesn't mean I'm a bad man now, I've learned. But that was because my course of learning was destroyed. Broken families. That's the foundational thing that's wrecking this world. If you don't sustain that foundation of family first and foremost, and you start giving it up to everybody else by sending your children off to them, instead of taking responsibility for extending that family through your children by taking responsibility over your children in every aspect until they are able to go out in the world, that's on you. You're the one breaking your own families, thinking that this comfort and convenience is so wonderful, that it's a benefit. I don't see how it's such a great benefit if you can do the job better and in the best interest of the child. These public education systems can't do that. They can't bring your child up under your spiritual realm. They can't teach your children your character traits of what a good man or good woman is. They teach them dogmatically according to their political ideals and their societal ideals, what they think they want their children to be. And God damn it, if you're not going to listen to them, they'll abuse your children just like they'd abuse their children. So I urge it, any of these teachers out there that are being caught abusing children in school, I'd check to see if their own children aren't being abused too. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the stream. I hope everybody's paying attention. It is your responsibility. If you think otherwise, it's only because you've been indoctrinated to believe that you can just give that responsibility up to somebody else and you have no responsibility. What happens at the end of the day when that child comes back home to you? Do you then take upon the responsibility of educating them to only dismiss it during that 8 hours the next day? And then when they come home, it's now your responsibility to educate them again? Why don't you just maintain the education 24/7? Maybe that's part of the confusion. You teaching them one thing and somebody in school teaching them another thing. See, I think that's where the hatred comes from. That's where the racism comes from. Other children's and their parents' ideals and stuff coming into the schools, and it's doing nothing but confusing the other children. You raise your children up with your own ideals. And I'm pretty sure you're probably going to have a better family. You're probably going to have a more closely connected family. So again, I urge everybody to understand it's your responsibility. It's not the children's fault anywhere. Child abuse, whose fault is it? Yours. Even though the teacher abused them, yeah, they're guilty. but initially the responsibility was yours. You passed it on to a teacher thinking you no longer have responsibility. What about the child that realizes you're the one that sent him there? And even after he told you he was afraid to go to school because they were abusing him, you kept sending him back to that school. You're breaking your own family. In my opinion only, of course. Hey, John, I was just getting ready to close out, but you're welcome. How you doing today, brother?
Keith, how you doing? I didn't know you were on.
Yep, I'm just finishing up. We just got done talking about child abuse and people sending their children to school where they're getting abused, and the children tell them about it. You know, they go home and tell mom and dad that, you know, I'm afraid I don't want to go back to school, but mom and dad send them back to school anyway without looking into it. And that's our ultimate responsibility, and that's what we're doing to break our own families.
Well, Keith, I think we trust the system a little too much. Shouldn't we trust ourselves, our communities, and God a lot more than the system?
Absolutely. That's what I was talking about in the beginning. We think that we can just send our children off to these schools just trusting that they've been qualified and they're going to do a good job. And we don't do our own research to find out who these teachers are, what their background is, if they've been moving from school to school and why, this and that. We don't do that. We don't maintain our own oversight. And even in that, we shouldn't be doing that. I think inherently we should be raising and teaching our own children. We shouldn't be giving them up to somebody else, because then they learn somebody else's spiritual dogmatic ideologies and stuff. That conflicts with our own. Then we have a problem with our own child.
Yeah. Plus all the feedback from the system. So the kid comes back to school worse than he left in the morning.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. You know, that was mentioned in the aspect of the children in these emotional support classes. One child gets abused, but it affects all of the children. It traumatizes all the children, puts them in fear that they'll be the next one to be hit. That's why we have bullies in school. Kids that grew up learning how to fight and saying, hey, I'm not going to let you bully me, so I'm going to bully you. Well, then all the other students in the school see him as a bully, and they're scared too. So I urge everybody to really think about the consequences that rebound back into your own family when your children are abused by teachers or other students in those schools. Ultimately, it's your responsibility. Ultimately, you are the one sending them children off to war, per se, because that's what they are. Those are war battlefields of emotions and spiritualities that are not constructed yet. They've not been well formed yet. That's the first 7 years of a child's life, and you're doing nothing but confusing them.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus they're pitting one kid against another. Like, you know, all these competitions. It's all false. The whole system. It's just so unnatural, you know. But
yeah, I hope more and more people see that in the future, because I think it would be a definite swing in the societal take and the societal prosperity if people would start taking those reins back and saying, no, I'm not going to send my children to your filthy, dogmatic, abusive centers, because that's what they are. You heard the man in the video say it several times, and I've said it repeatedly. It is systemic. It's not a one-off. It is systemic. It occurs in every school around this nation and likely around the world.
all right, brother. I'll have to watch it on replay.
You bet. Appreciate it, John. Good to see you again.
All right.
And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. We'll see you next time.
out.